This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. This is Wednesday, July 15th. My name is Lindsay Sin, Deputy Secretary for Women Veterans Affairs here at Calvet, and I'll be your host for today's presentation. Today we're going to talk about meditation and yoga practice, and we've invited the Veterans Yoga Project to talk a little bit about their program, but also walk us through a few techniques that we can use in our practice regularly. So we're joined today by Brianna Renner, and I will introduce her in just a few minutes. Before we get started, a few reminders for our webinar. Please remember to mute your phones, either doing that on your phone by pressing *6 or using our GoToMeeting software. Click your microphone to mute yourself and unmute yourself. Please hold all questions that you might have until the end of the presentation. You can ask those via our chat window on GoToMeeting, or you can ask them via the phone. As with all of our webinars, this webinar is recorded today so that you can access it at a later date. You'll find it at calvet.ca.gov/womenvets, then select our statewide monthly webinar button. And you can also find our past webinars, and any future webinars we post for the upcoming months will be there as well. As always, if you have any ideas and you'd like to hear for us to talk about, and you'd like us to feature a different topic, we're all ears and we'd love to discuss that. So please feel free to reach out to us with that or any other questions you may have about benefits and resources here for women vets in California. And you can find us at womenveterans@calvet.ca.gov. So in 1 minute, I'm going to pass over this presenter role to Brianna, but first I want to start talking a little bit about the subject and introduce the subject of mindfulness and some of the discussions we're going to have today. So the reason we thought this was a great topic today is that mindfulness is a really wonderful tool in our veterans toolbox that we can all use in terms of our daily management of stress, anxiety. Mindfulness has been used, these types of techniques, in managing physical pain and getting through anxious or stressful times. It's definitely proven to help veterans with PTSD and just people in general. It's another way to incorporate practice into your daily self-care exercises, especially during stressful times under the pandemic and kind of the unknown and uncertain future that we all see before us. These are really great techniques that we want to teach you today and continue to talk about in webinars that you can use that for our health. So mindfulness cultivates the habit of being present in the here and now, not focusing too much on the past or future, and acknowledging thoughts without judging them or reacting to them. So there's a couple of resources that we also want to provide today in addition to what Brianna is going to focus on for us. And they include some really great mobile smartphone apps that we want you guys to take a look at when you get the chance. There is Mindfulness Coach. This was developed to help veteran service members and others learn how to practice mindfulness. It also provides gradual self-guided training, and it has a library of information about mindfulness, 12 audio-guided mindfulness exercises, a growing catalog of additional exercises available to download for free. So check this out. It's available in the App Store and in Google Play. And then in the comments section, if anybody wants to attest to having used the Mindfulness Coach to see if it's useful to all of us, we'd love to hear that. So please provide your comments there. And then there are a ton of mental health smartphone apps as well. And these are really covering everything from mindfulness to meditation practice to working on issues of PTSD to some therapy coaches, even sleep aids here. We're going to have these available in PDF form on our website. So when you go to that statewide webinars website, you can also click on this PDF and just get a whole list of all of these great resources. And this was actually put together by the Fayetteville VA Medical Center. This is not something we put together, but also useful to you. So now I'd like to introduce our Veterans Yoga Project speaker, Brianna Renner. Brianna is a native of the state of New Hampshire, but of course we welcome her in California too. She served 5 years in the Marine Corps as an avionics technician at both MCAS Miramar in San Diego and in MCAS Iwakuni in Iwakuni, Japan. Brianna took her first yoga class while on leave and then didn't practice again until her first pregnancy several years later. Brianna found that her mat became her sanctuary, a place where she could find a Brianna went on to graduate from Discovery Yoga's 200-hour Kripalu teacher training and Soma Yoga Institute's 300-hour advanced teacher training. She's been part of the Veterans Yoga Project for over 6 years and is currently their director of programs. So Brianna, welcome. We're so happy to have you, and I'm going to make you the presenter.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Hi, everybody. It's an honor to be here with all of you today. Even though I am in New Hampshire, I did live in California once upon a time. So SoCal, sorry, Northern Californians. It is lovely up there, but I spent my time in Miramar. So here is what we are going to talk about today. We already went through the introductions. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are as an organization and what does mindfulness and yoga have to do with supporting ourselves in a place of recovery and becoming more present with not only what's going on right now, but as stressors come up in our lives, how can we use these tools both in the moment and when we really need them? We will also discuss the basic biology of stress and trauma and how and why some of it may sit in our bodies. And we will also discuss the biology of breathing and mindfulness. And then, of course, we'll breathe a little bit together and go over some mindfulness tools that I personally have found incredibly helpful over the years. So here we are. The Veterans Yoga Project is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting the recovery and resilience of veterans, their families, and communities. We are an organization that started off with one gentleman, that would be Dr. Dan Libby down in the bottom right-hand corner, in the West Haven VA over here in Connecticut, August 10 years ago. And here we are.
The slide still shows the agenda.
Brianna, can you advance your slide for us and put it on the presentation mode? We see the agenda still.
Oh, interesting.
I apologize for technical difficulties, folks.
Hold
on just a second.
Let
me see. So I'm in presenter mode. No. It might be helpful if maybe you do it on your end, because I'm in presenter mode, but it's not moving for you apparently.
If you want to hand back presenter mode to me, then we'll advance it for you.
Yeah, that'll be great. Thank you.
Patience, folks. Something always comes up, but we'll work through it because we're semper flexible, right?
All right, here you go, Lindsay. You should be presenter.
All right, please remember to mute your phones, folks. Go ahead, Brianna.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that. So here we are the Veterans Yoga Project. Dr. Dan is down there in the bottom right-hand corner. He is the reason that our organization lives today. We have over 140 volunteers and we span the globe. Like I said, I'm in New Hampshire. Dan is over there in NorCal. We have teachers in Germany and up in Canada, and we also have teachers out in Japan. So we are a global organization dedicated to supporting our veterans and families as they are. We are yoga teachers, we are family members, we are supporters, and we are mental health clinicians. Go ahead over to the next slide. Thank you. So the Veterans Yoga Project is founded on the idea of supporting resilience and recovery by using 5 different tools. So today we're going to talk about breathing and meditation. However, breathing is one of our primary tools, and we'll talk a little bit about why our breathing and our natural breath rhythm is our most important tool in allowing ourselves to stay present. So go ahead to the next slide, please.
Hey, folks, can you please mute your phones if you're on the call? We're getting a lot of background noise, and this is not the presentation where we want background noise.
Meditation is another one of our 5 tools. Meditation is the practice of being mindful in the moment, and that's it. Oftentimes, meditation gets a bad rap because we feel like we have to be doing something in particular. We feel like we have to find this state of bliss where our mind is completely emptied. I like to consider meditation that moment when you take that first sip of coffee in the morning or that first sip of tea, the moment where you smile and like the whole world just seems to stop and pause just for you in that moment. That can be a place of meditation. We'll also practice a little bit of meditation at the end of our session today. Go ahead over to the next slide, please. Mindful movement. So as we move through our lives, we have these different stressors that happen to our body and within our bodies, and we use this term mindful movement as a way to create a safe space, and we'll talk about what space means in just a moment. But we use mindful movement as a way to work out not only the kinks, but to allow our bodies to move in a free and safe environment. And sometimes it's the yoga postures that you see here on the screen. Sometimes it's a gentle, simple movement of rolling your shoulders. Mindful movement can be anything that you do in a mindful space. Go ahead and next slide.
Brianna, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody and then unmute yourself, okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Unmute Brianna here. All right, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Next slide, please. Guided rest. So guided rest is one of our 5 tools wherein if you've never practiced a guided rest or a yoga nidra practice, this is a practice wherein you get to, as our beautiful Daniel here, he is lying there and he is seemingly doing nothing. However, he has found a most comfortable space where he can breathe and be present. A guided rest is where someone walks you through several steps of a body awareness practice, a breath awareness practice, a mindful intention practice. If you've never practiced a guided rest, we will have links, I believe, at the end of the session today that will be sent out to you, wherein we offer guided rest practices. We have them on our practice library for free, and we have them daily on our Facebook page. But a guided rest practice is a way for us to be present in the moment. Oftentimes, Daniel looks pretty comfortable there. Whenever I practice guided rest, I tend to fall asleep, even though that's not necessarily the intention of a guided rest practice. For a lot of us, that's what happens, especially when we're stressed and our mind is going, and we don't often give ourselves those 5 minutes to just sit and breathe. Sometimes your body needs it more than you think it does. So guided rest is one of our 5 tools. Next slide, please. And last but not least, gratitude. So to cultivate a moment of gratitude, I invite us all to practice this moment together. So I invite for you to just find whatever space you happen to be in. Maybe you're sitting, maybe you're standing, maybe you're lounging about on the couch. If you're driving, I invite you to pay attention to what you're doing and maybe not soften your gaze. However, wherever you happen to be, I do invite you to draw in a nice, big, full, and beautiful inhale. And as you exhale, sigh it away. We're going to do that 2 more times together. Big, full breath in. Exhale, sigh it away. One more time. Big, full breath in. And as you exhale, see if you can draw it out for as long as possible. Allow your exhale to be full and deep. And I invite for you to maybe place one hand on your belly and one hand on your heart. Maybe it's just the idea of a belly on your hand and heart. So the word yoga comes from the word union. And this union can often be referred to as a place of connection within the body, our breath and awareness. There's lots of interpretations. But I invite for you to notice your breath and your heartbeat in this space without trying to change anything, without striving for anything in particular. It's just an awareness. Just following your inhales and exhales in this space. And just a couple more breath cycles at your own pace. Nowhere to be, nothing to do. Just breathing your own gentle rhythm. And I invite for you to bring both hands together at your heart. Maybe your palms touch together, maybe your hands just rest upon one another, maybe there's a different hand gesture that works at your heart space. And from this space around your hands and heart, I invite for you to bring to mind something that feels a little bit like gratitude. Maybe it's an idea, maybe it's a sensation, maybe it's just a notion of gratitude. And from this place, or this idea or sensation of gratitude, bring to mind one thing that you are grateful for today. There's no right or wrong. It's just whatever comes to mind in this place of gratitude. One more big full breath here. So our 5 tools consist of mindful movement, breath work, meditation, gratitude, and meditation. Next slide, please. So our programs, the way we support our veterans and families in our communities is in multiple ways. So the first way is that we offer a 15-hour Mindful Resilience for Trauma Recovery workshop. Over the course of these 15 hours, we discuss what trauma is, how and why trauma sits in the body, and how and why these tools of mindful resilience are effective complementary practices to treatments or therapies that are already in place. This program is designed for yoga teachers, mental health clinicians, and caregivers. We have had all sorts of people come through our training, veterans, civilians. So that is our MRT. There is a link for that as well that will be, I believe, in your follow-up. We also this year, it doesn't look like what we had planned. However, we are currently in the midst of our first ever 200-hour yoga teacher training for veterans by veterans. So we have 20 veterans that are going through our teacher training right now. There are 5 teachers on staff, 6 teachers on staff, 5 are veterans, 1 is Dan, and every yoga teacher student or yoga student has a mentor who is also either a veteran or civilian within the organization. We hope to continue on with our 200-hour program. We have also launched our Mindful Resilience for Compassion Fatigue. So compassion fatigue is this idea we're also compassionate people and we just want to help and we want to love. And that can be exhausting if we're not caring for ourselves and taking the time to breathe mindfully and take that moment of gratitude just for us. So we've launched a compassion fatigue program. And we also offer mindful resilience classes for our veterans, family members, and communities. So next slide, please. So in 2019, we had classes in over 18 VA hospitals around the country, 17 vet centers, plus 12 military bases, different veteran service organizations, and we were documenting over 2,500 veteran, family, and community member visits each month. Over the course of 2019, we saw over 26,000 veterans come through our classes that spanned the globe. This, of course, looks a little bit different this year. We are, if you move to the next slide, please. Thank you. So these are classes, if you're in the Northern California area, these are some classes and some places where we are offering classes or we're offering classes. If you are in SoCal or if you happen to be somewhere else, I can make sure that you get a link for more classes that are available. Of course, right now we aren't doing anything live or in person, but hopefully once our new normal happens. I'm not sure what that looks like exactly, but as we transition into a place where we can have classes in place, we'll make sure to send those links to you. So if you're interested and you want to join, you're more than welcome to participate. Next slide, please. The other way in which we support recovery and resilience in our everyday lives is through our practice library. So we are in a world right now. Oh, I'm that little person over on the right-hand side, by the way. That's me. So we are in a world where most everything is virtual at this point. So we have transitioned to an online platform. So if you go to the next slide, please. We offer classes not only on our veteransyogaproject.org/practice page, but we also offer live classes every day. So you'll get a link to, if you're on Facebook, you'll get a link to our Facebook page where you can practice alongside Veterans Yoga Project teachers from around the world. And we offer tools, these 5 tools, the movement, guided rest, gratitude, meditation, and breath work every day. Some practices are a little bit longer, some are a little bit shorter, but they are all free. All of our offerings are free, whether they're an in-person class, a practice library class, or here on the Facebook page. And this was our response to making sure that these classes and these practices are still accessible. I feel like we need them now, not more than ever, but it's important for us to continue to breathe, and it's important for us to continue to care for ourselves so that we in turn can care for others. Next slide, please. So that's who we are. So diving a little bit into what all of this means and why are these tools so important. So one of the most helpful ways I have found for me to support myself is when I take the time to identify what's really stressing me out. I tend to be a pretty happy-go-lucky person, but at the end of the day, when I'm meditating or when I'm journaling, I recognize that when I think back through my day that, oh, maybe that did actually stress me out, or maybe that did actually make me feel a little upset. So, you know, we all have those days and we all have those moments. And of course, right now we are under a lot of stress coming from a multitude of ways. So I invite for you, maybe when we're done the practice or at some point, identify some of your stressors and what tools can we use to support our growth so that we are not in this place of stress constantly, but we can use our tools within ourselves to move beyond our stressors. So next slide, please. As Lindsay said, Veterans Yoga Project is here and mindfulness is here to not only support stress, but in a little bit of a bigger scale to support post-traumatic stress in a place of post-traumatic growth. So the D is a disorder, as in the community is starting to look at post-traumatic stress as not just a disorder, not only a disorder, but simply post-traumatic stress. And I use the word simply very loosely, as in post-traumatic stress is really complicated. And as you can see on this slide, there are a lot of reasons and a lot of events and effects that can cause post-traumatic stress in somebody. It could be one of these, it could be a combination of all of these, it could be something that's not on this list. The reality is we all deal with trauma in some way throughout our lifetime. Something will happen to us that will cause a traumatic response within our neurosystem, within our bodies. So what might that look like? So next slide, please. Trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event, such as an accident, a rape, or a natural disaster. Immediately after the event, shock and denial are typical. Longer-term reactions include unpredictable emotions, flashbacks, strained relationships, and even physical symptoms like headaches or nausea. While these feelings are normal, some people have difficulty moving on. So how do we use these tools to move on, and what does that look like? Next slide, please. Trauma and traumatic events all consist or don't consist of these three things. They all lack safety, they all lack predictability, and they all lack control. So in the Marine Corps, Semper Fi, the Marines on the call, in the Marine Corps, we're trained really, really well to protect ourselves, right? We take martial arts courses and we're learned in hand-to-hand combat, and we do all of these things. When I was stationed in Southern California, my ex-husband bought me some pepper spray. Great gesture. I was coming home from work. I worked the night shift. I was coming home from the night shift, and I was walking through our apartment complex, and he had hid in a bush, and he jumped out of the bush just to see what I would do. Would I use his pepper spray? I froze. I didn't think I would freeze. I was a Marine. I'm trained in all of these things and all this combatic styles. I was taking Taekwondo at the time. I should have been able to protect myself, and I didn't. In that moment of panic, in that moment of freeze, I literally froze and I could do nothing. So it was completely unpredictable. I did not see him there. I felt completely unsafe in the moment as he jumped out at me, and I was not in control. I was not only not in control of what was happening outside of my body. I didn't know he was going to do that. I was not in control within my own body. I was supposed to respond a certain way. I was trained to respond a certain way in these instances, and I didn't. I was not in control. So in that moment, I was exhibiting a place of trauma. I was not safe, I was not predictable, and I was not in control at all. And most traumatic events will contain these pieces. Next slide, please. So SPACE is our acronym, right? We're veterans organizations. We've got to have our acronyms. So SAFE is to create a space where it is safe, predictable, and controlled environment. So during this stressful event, right, we are lacking safe, predictable, and control, not only outside of ourselves, but within ourselves. Next slide, please. So this space not only happens during the stressful event, it also happens after the stressful event. So I have two children, and when they were younger, they would jump out at me. They thought it was funny to hide and go boo. And I learned very quickly after my first interaction with my ex-husband, I learned how to respond in a situation that way. And my kids learned very quickly to not scare mommy, because that is not the best thing you could be doing right now. So it is something that stays with us over time, this lack of safety, predictability, and control. Next slide, please. So how can yoga and mindfulness help all of this? Go ahead, next slide, please. This is a phase-oriented approach when we look at treatment settings. So phase one is this place of stabilization. It's this place of arousal regulation. And we're going to talk about what arousal regulation means in a moment. Phase two is where our clinicians live, right? That is all your processing, that is your exposure, that's your acceptance, that's that place of active growth. Phase three is also where we as yoga teachers tend to live. We live in this space where it is a practice of ongoing wellness. It is a practice of ongoing post-traumatic growth. So when we think of yoga in a clinical setting, and when we bring yoga to the VAs and the vet centers, we approach the clinicians as a way that this is supporting what you are doing. You clinicians live in phase two. We help you in supporting those other phases by offering these tools so that veterans can have their tools within them, within their own toolbox when they need it, when hopefully nobody's ex-husband jumps out at them, but when those moments of stress arise, we have these tools at our disposal to tap into. Next slide, please. So here we are. We have our stress during the moment, during the event. We are lacking that space, that safety, predictability, and control. It continues on afterwards. And when we can begin to find this place of mindful resilience, and when we can begin to practice mindful resilience tools, we are beginning to create within ourselves a safe space. We are beginning to create a little bit of safety, a little bit of predictability, and a little bit of control. So if we all took a nice big full inhale together, I can say with about 100% certainty that we are all going to exhale. Creating a little bit of predictability within yourself. You know that when you inhale, chances are pretty good that at some point you're going to exhale. So just by using our breath, we can begin to create a little bit of predictability, a little bit of control within ourselves. Next slide, please. So our breath work. Here we are. We practiced a little bit a moment ago, but I would like for us to practice a moment of breath work again. So I invite for you to, one more time, find a space wherein you can breathe easefully, whatever that may look like for you. Maybe it's sitting, maybe it's lying down. Allow yourself to be supported in your space. And as you begin to find your most supported space, allow your gaze to soften. And as your gaze begins to soften, I invite for you to draw in a nice big full inhale. And as you exhale, sigh it away. With the next few moments, begin to notice perhaps any sounds you may hear that are going on around you, without trying to label anything, without striving for anything in particular. Just notice what you notice. And from this place of awareness, gradually draw your attention into your physical body. Notice any sensations that may or may not be present. Maybe notice how your body makes connection with the support underneath you. And from your physical body, gradually draw your attention into your breath body. So just begin to notice the quality of your inhales and exhales without changing anything, without striving for anything. Just begin to notice what you notice within your own breath and maybe within your own body. To be mindful is to pay attention on purpose in this present moment. So I invite for you now to begin to mindfully connect with your breath. So how do we do that? So I invite for you to allow your breath to deepen in the bowl of your belly. And if it helps to have that tactile feedback, maybe place your hands on your belly. And allow your breath to expand front to back, side to side, deep in the bowl of your belly. And as you breathe deep into the bowl of your belly, or maybe it's the idea of breathing deep into your belly, begin to draw out or lengthen your exhales. Sometimes I find counting my breath helps. Maybe if you count on an inhale to a count of 4, maybe allow your exhales to draw out to a count of 5 or 6. Inevitably, your attention is going to wander and drift, and that's okay. This is a practice, not a perfection. Allow your attention to wander and ever so patiently bring it back to the rhythm and sensations of your own breath. And just another breath or two here. Notice what you notice in this space. One more full breath together. Our breath work is an important tool in keeping our hypervigilance in check, keeping our that moment wherein we freeze, right? Our parasympathetic nervous system is our rest and digest space. Our sympathetic nervous system is our place of flight or fight. And when we breathe, we're able to tap in a little more deeply into our parasympathetic nervous system. Next slide, please. So this is our body's natural response, right? It's a little bit small, however, it's just highlighting what I just mentioned, the autonomic nervous system and the breakdown between our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Next slide, please. So here we are. When we are in a place of parasympathetic response, our bodies are able to function a little more clearly. We have more options available to us. We're in that rest and digest place. We're in that place of, yeah, man, we're okay. When we're in a place of sympathetic response, that's when our heart rate starts to increase. And when our heart rate starts to increase, then we tap into that place of fight or flight. That's when our body starts to not necessarily shut down, but when we freeze, right? When we don't have all of our options available to us, when we aren't able to tap into our breath, when we aren't able to tap into the present moment, our body is doing one thing in this moment, and that is to save ourselves. That is to be alive. When we're in this parasympathetic place, when we can deepen our breath and when we are able to be a little bit more present, our options are more than just being alive, right? We have so many more options available to us and so many more tools available to us in this place of parasympathetic response. The vagus nerve is one of the longest nerves in the body, and it stems from our brainstem all the way down into your belly. And it is often referred to as this mind-body connection. So our vagus nerve, it acts as our brake pedal. So when we are in a place of sympathetic state, our vagus nerve is essentially held off the brake. Our heart is beating incredibly quickly. We don't have a lot of heart rate variability. When we are able to inhale deeply and exhale slowly, what happens is that slow, long, deep exhale starts to tap on the brakes a little bit on our vagus nerve. Without our vagus nerve, our heart rate would go about 170 beats per minute. And if your heart rate has ever beat 170 beats per minute, that's really fast. And in that place, right, we're in this place where we can't get our words out, where we're frozen, our muscles are really tight, and we just can't think, we can't breathe, our breath is super tight up in our chest. But when we are able to find our full, expansive, beautiful inhales and exhales, that vagus nerve begins to check in, and we are able to send those signals to our brain that says, hey man, we're cool. We're all right. We're not in danger. We can rest and digest here. It's okay. Go ahead, next slide, please. So what does this look like from a clinical position? This is called the window of tolerance. Within the window of tolerance, you have a hyper-aroused state, right? That's when our heartbeat is going super fast and we don't have a lot of thoughts in our minds. We are just in this place of hyper-arousal, hypervigilance. On the other end of that, we have low arousal. We have low vigilance. So we're in that place of sometimes when we get depressed or when we get sad and we sit on the couch and we just don't want to move or we just don't want to do anything. That is our place of low arousal. So someplace between the two, we have what's called the optimal arousal zone. And how do we get there? By breathing, by creating space, that safety and predictability and control within ourselves, we are able to find a place where we are behaving in line with our values and goals, where we can find a place of regulation within our own bodies. Next slide, please. So this is our hyperarousal, and this is what it may look like for some. You have your emotional reactivity, right? When my kids would jump out at me, my first response was to yell and be not as pleasant to my children as I would have liked to have been. Hypervigilance, right? For a while, I was checking the corners because they just did it nonstop. So I was always checking the corners. Are they jumping out? What's going to happen? Intrusive imagery. I can still see my ex-husband jumping out of bushes. This place of obsessive and clinical cognitive processing. So it's constantly, these thoughts and ideas and images are constantly running through our heads. And this place of tension, shaking and ungrounded, right? So when you're tense and your heart is beating really fast and you're in this hyper aroused state, of course there's tension and of course we're shaking and ungrounded because our bodies are shaking and ungrounded. We are not in control of our breath and in our bodies. Next slide, please. So we have sometimes a daily basis, we have these this dysregulation within ourselves. We may have a moment of that flashback when we see something happen and then we dive into our Ben & Jerry's fish food ice cream because man, it is so good and I know it makes me happy, so I know it's going to ease whatever I need to ease right now. And I can't believe I just ate that whole pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. I'm such a failure. Oh my gosh. So I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to brood over everything that I've ever done that has caused me to be in this space. And wait, no, I don't want to be in this space. So then it jumps up to this place of flashback and rage and anger. And then, oh, I can't believe I just yelled at my kids again for jumping out at me. I'm such a terrible mother. Oh my God, I'm such a terrible mother. And then it swings back up. And then maybe at the end of the day, I dive into my Bailey's coffee and I fall asleep and then I have nightmares and then the whole cycle starts all over again. So for some of us, this is what a day looks like, right? We have these wild swings from hyperarousal to hypoarousal. Next slide, please. And when we are in these places of hyper or hypoarousal, our thought behavior repertoire is incredibly small, right? When my ex-husband jumped out at me, there wasn't anything I could do except to defend myself. And by defending myself, my lizard brain kicked in and it froze. I froze right where I was. Next slide, please. However, 20 years later, I now know that when I take a breath, when my children jump out at me, I am able to, instead of responding the way I used to by yelling at them, I am able to maybe jump out at them first. I am able to cut them off before they ever jump out at me, and I'm able to take that breath before I see it coming and before I know what's happening. So I am able to respond in more than just to defend myself, but I'm able to respond with more options, more thoughts. My daughters know that when I start to take really big, deep breaths, they've taken things a little too far and they may take a step back and breathe with me. But they know that when I start to breathe fully, it's because I need to increase and broaden my thought behavior repertoire so that I don't respond with that very narrow reaction, but that I'm able to control my response. I'm able to react mindfully as opposed to acting not mindfully. Next slide, please. And here it is again. So the idea behind these tools is to create our own space of self-regulation. We have these swings throughout the day. So what can we do? How can we create that space where we are in our optimal arousal zone so that we are able to progress and move through our day that does fall in line with our own values and goals? Next slide, please. Thank you. So when we are able to take those big, full, beautiful breaths, and we're able to do it again and again, we're able to create that safe, predictable, and controlled environment, because I know that when I pause and I step my feet out just beyond hips width, I call it my Wonder Woman pose. When I'm able to step my feet out, put my hands on my hips, and take those big, full breaths, I am in control of my own responses. Next slide, please. So here it is in one slide. So we have our breath awareness. These are some practices that we can do. We've done a breath awareness practice. We've done a little bit of an extended exhale breathing practice. So I invite for us to take a moment, maybe the next 3 or 4 moments or so, to practice what's called a 3-part breathing practice. So one more time, I invite for you to find a space wherein you can breathe easily, whatever that may look like for you. And as you settle into your space, allow your gaze to soften. And as your gaze begins to soften, draw in a nice big full inhale. And as you exhale, sigh it away. And with the next few breath cycles, just notice the quality of your breath without trying to change anything, without striving for anything. Just notice how your breath feels in this moment. So our 3-part breath will consist of us breathing mindfully in the 3 areas of our lungs. I'll guide us through as we move through together. If at any point you would like to release what I'm trying to offer and just breathe in your own way, please do. I invite for you to place your hands on your belly. With the next 4 or 5 breath cycles or so, just notice your breath right there in the bowl of your belly, whatever that looks like, however that feels for you. Again, there's no right or wrong. It's just an awareness. Notice your breath right there in the bowl of your belly. And just a couple more breath cycles. We all breathe at different rates, so if you're ahead or if your breaths are a little more full, that's absolutely fine. With your next inhale, I invite for you to breathe into your rib cage. So often an option to place your hands just on your ribs. You can give yourself a little bit of a hug if you'd like, or maybe your hands come to your sides. But just with the next few breath cycles, allow your breath to breathe fully into your rib cage, front to back, side to side. We'll do maybe 4 more breath cycles here. Just notice what your breaths feel like here in your rib cage. Couple more breaths. And when you are ready, I invite for you to place your hands just underneath your collarbones, so our lungs actually span from our low belly all the way up to our collarbones. So I invite for you to breathe here for another 5 or so breath cycles, just at the top of your lungs, right underneath your chest, just below your collarbones. Notice the sensations of your breath here in this space. Just a few more breath cycles here. So now we'll combine all 3 parts of our lung breathing, all 3 parts of this mindful breath. So I invite for you to place one hand on your belly, and maybe that other hand stays up at your heart. So on your next inhale, breathe about 1/3 of the way into your belly. You got to do a little bit of math. 1/3 of the way into your lungs, and the rest of the way up into your chest, just underneath your collarbones. And as you exhale, soften through your chest, your ribs, and your belly. And we'll do 5 more cycles just like that. I'll call it out, but please go with your own breath at your own pace. Inhale into your belly, your ribs, your chest, and all the way exhale. Inhale, belly, ribs, chest. Exhale. 3 more cycles with your own breath at your own pace. Maybe one more breath cycle together. And gently release your hands, and with the next breath or two, just notice how that feels or resonates in your body. Notice the quality of your breath. There's no right or wrong, good or bad. It's just an observation and awareness. So each one of these breath practices that we have done today are yours. They're yours within your toolbox that you're able to now tap into and bring to mind when you have that moment of stress or anxiety, or maybe even depression, whatever range of emotions you happen to be feeling. I invite for you to check in with these different breath practices. And some days you're going to find that an extended exhale breathing practice is more what you need. Some days maybe it's just a breath awareness, right? Some days there's also a breathing practice called a cooling breath, wherein you just make a straw with your lips. Then you inhale through your straw and then exhale out of your nose. On those days where you may feel angry or a little hot under the collar, that cooling breath can be a really accessible way to calm our sympathetic nervous system so we can tap into the parasympathetic space. Next slide, please. Meditation. Again, these practices that we've done, and I know I'm running out of time here very quickly. However, that practice that we just did, that 3-part breath practice, can also be a meditation. To meditate is to be present with what arises. It is not to find peace, but to be at peace with what you find. So I invite for you, if meditation isn't a part of your practice, maybe try a breath practice and allow that to be your meditation. See how it resonates with you. There are so many styles of meditation. One of my favorite is called a mantra meditation, wherein you repeat a phrase to yourself. It reminds me of calling cadence back in the day. So I'm able to tap into my breath a little easier, and I'm able to find an easier rhythm when I repeat a phrase or a word. Lately, it's been the Beatles song, All You Need Is Love, has been my mantra meditation. So it could be anything that's accessible to you that you can repeat to yourself. Next slide, please. So the difference between being mindful and being hypervigilant. To be mindful is to pay attention on purpose in the present moment without judgment. To be hypervigilant is to pay attention on purpose, ready to react. So there's a very fine line between being mindful and being hypervigilant, but when we utilize these tools that we have at our disposal, we can teeter to that space of mindfulness from that place of hypervigilance. Next slide, please. So here we are. These are some tools that we offer that you're more than welcome to, write down or copy or preview for later. We did a breath awareness meditation today. A mantra meditation, repetition, that's the one I just mentioned, where you repeat a word or phrase to yourself. A body scan meditation can also be a guided rest or a yoga nidra practice. A sound awareness, I'm not sure how good my speakers are, but I live in the woods and we constantly have birds around. So, maybe it's a practice wherein you listen to a sound, or it's an idea of a sound. A loving kindness meditation, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be free from harm. And an open awareness meditation, just this place of what do you notice and how does that resonate with you? So I know there's a few more slides, but we'll stop here because I think this is the crux and the magic of what it is that we do. So I invite for us to wrap up in the essence of time. One more time, bring your hands together at your heart. Maybe your palms touch together, maybe your hands rest on one another. From this space around your hands and heart, find that place or that idea or sensation of gratitude. And from that place or idea or sensation of gratitude, bring to mind one more thing that you are grateful for today. And please accept my deepest gratitude for allowing me to share in this practice with you today. Thank you so much to Lindsay and Cindy for allowing me to be here with all of you. It has been an honor and a pleasure. Please feel free to reach out if you ever have any questions. I'm absolutely here to support you however I can. I hope you have a really beautiful day.
Brianna, thank you so much for that. I was breathing through your techniques while you were guiding us through that, as I think many of us were, and it was wonderful. We'll leave 1 minute here for questions. Do we have any questions via our chat window or over the phone before we wrap up today's presentation? Let me try and unmute everybody really quick.
I had a question. Oh.
Can you hear us?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you guys. I just hear a lot of the background noise as well. So my question is, I know you sent me a message saying that you guys were gonna send the slideshow out to everyone. But as far as your Facebook courses go, is it similar to this?
Yes. All of the tools that we talked about today, many of the teachers that we have on our Facebook online streaming class page incorporate these tools into their practices.
Okay. And as far as the yoga courses, how does that work?
Sure. So are you wanting to take a class?
Yes, I'm very interested in learning about it.
Awesome. So if you're wanting to take a class, like I said, feel free to jump on our Facebook page. We also have on our practice library, it is veteransyogaproject.org/practice. There are a myriad of practices on there that range from gentle. I think we have a few basic like 20-minute practices, and we have a couple intermediate practices. We also have chair practices on there. So you're more than welcome to do those. They are pre-recorded, so you can watch them over and over again. The ones on Facebook happen live, but they also stay on Facebook. So we've been online since March, so we have several months worth of classes available. And if you have specific questions about any style of yoga or what you should try, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to work with you however I can.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hello?
Yes, you're so welcome.
Go ahead.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Brianna. I was curious if the mindfulness app will gradually help you become a mindfulness coach.
That I'm not sure. Lindsay?
We don't know. We'll have to look at that mindfulness app for you, Lou, and figure out what exactly it can provide.
Fantastic. Thank you. I look forward to that answer. Thank you so much.
And Carrie Ann, do we teach yoga to veterans to become yoga instructors? It sounds like you can't do that with your project.
Yeah, so we currently have a 200-hour yoga teacher training for veterans. So yes, we are actively doing that. And are looking to launch our second class. This is actually our inaugural class, and we're looking to launch our second class next year. We will have applications available probably late summer, early fall next year.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're so welcome. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to mute everybody again as we wrap up here. Thank you for your questions. If you have more, you can always email us in the chat window or call us as well. So again, folks, I am very grateful for your participation. Thank you for attending our webinars, because this continues to prompt us and support us in doing what we do here for you at Calvet. It warms our hearts, Cindy and I and our other staff and leadership here at Calvet, to know that we're offering something that is useful to you all as veterans and advocates of veterans. Thank you, Brianna, so much. This was a wonderful presentation today. Our thanks to Dan and to the Veterans Yoga Project for being available to do this, and we will send people your way. Again, look for our next presentation. We'll have a couple of announcements for August webinar topics, and we look forward to having you there. And we'll do more mindfulness and yoga training, as well as we have many other wonderful groups that work with the VA and otherwise here in California and nationwide that also offer similar practices. So stay tuned for more, folks. Take care, be safe, wear your masks, and contact us if there's anything else we can do for you. Thank you.